Hello guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here then just welcome. Today I am bringing you my September wrap up. During the month of September I read 7 books and DNF'd 1. Let's start with the DNF. Now I DNF'd Lisa Jewels, Then She Was Gone. I've got my notes here, I'm sure that's what it was called. Yes, Lisa Jewell, Then She Was Gone. This is the second Lisa Jewell book that I've DNF'd. I can't even remember what the first one was that I tried to read, a physical book. Couldn't get into it. And the same happened with this one. I tried to listen to it on audio because I found it on YouTube for free. And I got a good 40 minutes in, but I had no intention of I didn't want to listen to it. I didn't want to pick it up. So I DNF'd that one, unfortunately. I know that Lisa Jewell is really popular, so it's probably a very unpopular opinion. But I just don't think her writing's for me. I've seen a lot at the moment about The Family Upstairs, and I'm not compelled to want to read it. But if you've got any recommendations of for Lisa Jewell's books that perhaps you think I should try, then please let me know. Next up, so the first book I read in the month of September was We Should All Be Feminists by Chimamanda Adichie Agoshi. Tiny little book. This is a copy basically of the TED talk that she gave, and it just explores how she became a feminist, how she realised she was a feminist, and why we should all be feminists. It's so good, it's so powerful, there's such passion just in this little book, and it really feels like you were just sitting watching her give her speech to us. And some of the words in this are used in Beyonce's song Flawless, which is just perfect. And I just love it, and I think that all men, women and children should read this book. Because it was really good. There's not really a lot else to say about it. It was a very short book. I read it in one go, lying on my bed one day, and I loved it. There we go. Next up, I listened to my first ever full audiobook, which was The Guest List by Lucy Foley. I don't have the physical book. I wasn't going to get it because I read The Haunting Party, but see, I can't even remember, by Lucy Foley earlier in the year, and I gave it 2 stars. I really wasn't a fan, but oh my gosh guys, The Guest List was brilliant. I gave it 4 stars. I don't know if it was because it was my first ever audiobook and the whole experience was just beautiful for me. I really enjoyed it. It's a full cast audiobook, which I loved. We hear from different perspectives. So we've got Olivia, who is basically the story is about a wedding that's taking place on a little island, and that's all I'm going to tell you because it's a thriller, and I know a lot of you are like me and you like to go in blind with thrillers, but I will tell you the perspectives that we hear from. So we hear from Olivia, who is the bridesmaid, Hannah, who is a +1, Jules, who is the bride, the wedding planner, who I can't remember her name, begins with A, but I can't remember it, I'm sorry, and Jono, who's the best man. Jono was my favourite character. I absolutely loved this book. There is triggers for it though, for suicide attempts, so just be mindful of that if you're not a fan of reading books with that in. But it's really good. As I say, it's a thriller. It kept me guessing. It was very tense. It was well written because it was really building. I really like this one more than The Hunting Party because it was just focused on one story, whereas The Hunting Party, there was 2 stories going along side by side, and the one was just for me a little bit pointless. So but I really enjoyed The Guest List. The audiobook was fab. I would highly recommend it. Next up, I read So Lucky by Dawn Porter. I got this in a charity shop for £1. I picked it up because it had a donut on. I'm so glad I did. This tells the story of 3 women. There is Beth, who owns and runs her own company. She's a wedding planner. She's not not recently had a baby. So she's gone back to work straight after having her baby and left her husband at home to watch said baby, because she's got a big celebrity wedding to do. And her plan is to sort of do that and then go back and have some maternity leave. So that's Beth. She has an assistant who works with her. We don't hear from her assistant's perspective, but her name is Risky, and she was a lot of fun in this book. Then we have Lauren, who is the woman who is getting married. She is an Instagram star, like an influencer kind of thing. And then we also hear from, what's her name? Oh my goodness, Ruth. I want to say Ruth. Ruby. Sorry, Ruby. Ruby is a single mom, and she doesn't, sounds a bit mean, but she doesn't really like being a mom, or she's not very good at it. But she does touch-ups on photos ready for, you know, magazine shoots and things like that. And she's very good at her job, and she loves her job. And in the background we learn that she's got a condition which means that she doesn't want to show anyone her body ever, including her little girl who's like 2 or something. So she's very self-conscious, and basically Beth is planning Lauren's wedding, and Ruby is the woman who's doing the touch-up of the photos, and it's just about how their lives, how they find each other and the friendship that builds. And there's lots of other little characters who come in and who are connected, who you don't realise are connected, and then it comes to light that they either know the person, one of the women, or they're related to one of the women. And it's just an Amy book, basically. It's all about women friendships, empowerment, accepting yourself as you are, learning to not necessarily love yourself, but just accept who you are and be happy and content with the body that you have and the life that you have. And it was brilliant. It was like set now, so it was very relatable. It was funny, really funny. Little bit sexy in places. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Really recommend it. I gave it 4 stars. Next up, I buddy read, although I wasn't very good at it this time, The Foundling by Stacey Halls. Look, I know I show it every time, but look at this gorgeous cover. I mean, and the end papers. Oh, I just love it. This is the second book by Stacey Halls. I love the first one, and I bloody love this one as well. This tells the story of a young girl who has a baby. When's it set? It's historical fiction. It's set in London in 1754, and Bess has a baby, and unfortunately she can't afford to look after this baby. So she takes her, just a few hours old, to the hospital, the Foundling, and she leaves her there, and then she goes off and she saves so hard, and 6 years later she goes back to collect her daughter, and she saves all this money so that she can pay for the care that she's had during that time, and then she wants to get her baby back. And when she goes back, she's told that her daughter had already been claimed the day after she was dropped off at the hospital by someone claiming to be Bess, which obviously wasn't the case. We hear from the perspective of Bess, and then we hear from the perspective of Alexander, who is the woman who has brought up the baby. I loved this book so much. It's so well written. It has a happy ending, which I don't often read about, unless it's like, you know, a romance and they get together in the end kind of thing. And I just loved it. It was atmospheric, it was moving, it was sad, but it was so well written. Like the descriptions, you could really feel the pain of both of these women, and I just loved it. The only reason that I gave it 4 stars, which I gave it 4 stars because there's another character in the book called Dr. Mead, who is a male doctor, and we didn't hear much about him, and I was really intrigued with his character, and I would have loved to have heard a little bit more from him, and his backstory, and what happened, because he is highly involved in both of the women's lives, and he plays a big part in what happens in the book, and we didn't hear from him, and that made me sad. But at the same time, I fully appreciate and respect the fact that Stacey just did it from the 2 women's perspective, so it was just women, and I loved it, absolutely loved it. I love both of her books, and historical fiction is not my thing. Thank you so much, Emily from Novell Novels, for asking me to buddy read these with you. The experience was wonderful, and for getting me to read them in the first place, because I wouldn't have picked them up, and I am so glad I did. If you haven't picked up a Stacey Hall's book and you like historical fiction, and settings, plot and character, then I would say pick one up. Next up, let me check my notes. Next up, I read Beach Read by Emily Henry. Ooh. So I ordered this book after I'd seen Charlotte from Books and Bargains talking about it on her channel. It says 2 writers, 1 holiday, a rom-com waiting to happen. This tells the story of January and Gus, who are both writers. January writes chick lits and rom-com books, and Gus writes more thrillers, sort of dark books. They meet, and basically they decide that they are going to write each other's genre of book. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars for a couple of reasons. One, it's called Beach Read. Now, they're not on a holiday, so I didn't really get, I mean, there is a beach nearby that they go to a couple of times, but I didn't really get the significance, and that sort of puzzled me all the way, and it still is, as you can tell, puzzling for me. And also because it was just kind of, it was just an easy read. It was nice. It was good. It was very saucy, in my opinion. So if you like a little bit of like naughtiness in your life, this is one I would go for. But yeah, really liked it. A good one. Then I read Marian Keyes Grown Ups. Now, I picked this up from a charity shop. It's a hardback, and we know how I feel about a hardback. It's a huge book. I knew it was quite new, or it was new to me anyway, because I'd seen a lot of people talking about it and I hadn't seen it anywhere else. And it was 80p. So I bought it. When I realised how big it was, I decided to listen to it on audiobook. I got a free trial with Scribd, I think it's called, from Fabulous Book Fiend. So thank you very much for that. The audiobook, guys, was like 17 and a half hours long. And the first couple of chapters, they're really short chapters. There's like 109 of them. I was like, I'm going to get so lost. I'm not going to be able to follow this at all. But I just couldn't pick it up because it was just too big and it was too scary. I am so pleased that I persevered with this book. Marian Keyes reads it herself, and it's about 3 brothers. Archie boy, sorry. Stop it, lie down. Good boy. 3 brothers, Johnny, Liam and Ed, and we hear mainly from the perspectives of their wives. So we've got Johnny's wife, Jessie, Liam's wife, Nell, and Ed's wife, Cara. And it just tells the story, basically. At the beginning, there's like a prologue that sort of gives an idea of where the guys are now, and you're like, oh my gosh, what's happened? And then the book goes back and it sort of starts like 6 months before at the Easter weekend away, or 2 months before at Johnny's birthday party. And as I said, we hear from the 3 women, and and what's happening in their lives. Jessie likes to organise family get-togethers, so they're always doing something and meeting up, and it just basically, we just follow the story of this one family all coming together and what happens. There is things in here about asylum seekers, period poverty. There are also triggers for eating disorders, especially bulimia. There is affairs, there is just everything. It's just like a family drama, but the characters, I just loved them. Cara, Nell, Ferdia, one of the sons, just, and I didn't want it to end, and I kept looking and the hours just kept ticking on down, and I was like, 17 hours, I just want it to keep going. I just want to, it was just like living with them every day and find out what happens, and like a little, you know, look into this family and all the things that are going on that so and so doesn't know about, and then they know about this, and this is happening with money, and this is happening with the business, and she fancies him, and it can't happen because they're all related and they've got to go to this harvest thing together, so they've all got to see each other. And I just loved it, I really did. And when it finished, I was so sad. I listened to every last bit from Marian Keyes, the acknowledgements, everything, because I just didn't want to press stop on the audiobook. I downloaded it so I could keep it, and I'm keeping this hard copy as like a memory for me. But it was pure joy. It's absolutely correct. It was just following a family and what happens, their ups and downs, and how they deal with it and how they interact with each other. It was funny, it was heartbreaking, it was incisive, it was normal. I think that's the thing as well. It just showed that, you know, everyone's got something going on and how we deal with it. And I just loved it, guys, honestly. And I know it's a big book, but please give it a go and listen to it if you don't fancy picking it up and physically reading it like I did. And I just didn't want their stories to end. And I finished it like a week ago, and I still think about them. And I watched a film last night, and in my head I was like, oh, that's what I pictured Nell to look like. And I just loved it. They were just like my friends, and I love them. Please read this book, 5 stars. And then last up for September, I read Before the Coffee Gets Cold, Tales from the Cafe by this amazing author. Never say his name, not even going to try, because I don't want to butcher it, because he's one of my favourite people in the world ever. These books that look at these flaps as well, these French flaps, love them. This is the second book now, and I really hope he just carries on telling the stories, because when I think about this book and how I can describe it, there are no words. It's like nothing that I've ever read before. It's about making people happy and sacrifices and compromise and love, and true friendship, and understanding. And it's like the world's, you know, not a great place, but there's hope and there's love. And I don't know if other people get that from the book as well, or if it's just me. This one had 4 stories in. It has the best friend, mother and son, the lovers, and the married couple. This book also tells us a little bit more about the waitress at the cafe. So it's a cafe, basically, if you don't know, sorry, where if you sit in a certain chair, when the woman who occupies that chair all the time gets up, then you are able to travel through time. You can either go back in time or go ahead in time to the future. You can't change anything while you're there, but you can go back and meet people and speak to people. And we get told about the waitress and her story, who pours the coffee that you have to drink and not let get cold before you return. And there's a little bit at the end, and it just melted my heart. It was so wonderful, and it's so brilliantly written. I believe it's like a play script. I can't rave enough about these books. I love them. And as I say, they're like nothing I've ever read before, and they just bring me all the lovely warm fuzzy feelings. That is a 5-star, obviously. That, guys, is my wrap up for September. Let me know what you've been reading. Happy October. Whoop, whoop. Favourite time of the year is coming up, guys. Oh yes. I hope you're all doing well. Let me know what you read, what you're planning on reading next. I'm currently reading Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn, which was on my October TBR. I'm only about 50 pages in, but really enjoying it. Going to go back and read some more of that now with a nice cup of tea. Hopefully we'll speak to you soon. Thank you so much for watching. Be kind to yourselves, and I will see you soon. Bye, guys.